My guest today on the Career Musician Podcast is none other than percussionist extraordinaire Eric Darken. On the Nashville session and touring scene, this man has played with the likes of Taylor Swift, Bon Jovi, Jewel, Bob Seger, Carrie Underwood, Vince Gill, Amy Grant, Faith Hill, Take Six, Megadeth, Ingrid Michaelson, Blues Traveler, George Strait, Gary Allen, Niall Horan, Josh Turner, Peter Frampton, Rascal Flatts, Luke Bryan, Kenny Chesney, Toby Keith, Shania Twain, Tim McGraw, and the list just keeps going. Here's the cool part. He also tours with Jimmy Buffett and the Coral Reefer Band with Mac McNally, who is also Jimmy Buffett's music director. Eric Darken certainly knows how to get the job done both in the studio and on stage. Trust me, you don't want to miss it right here on the Career Musician Podcast. Eric Darken, welcome to the Career Musician Podcast.
Howdy, good to be here.
Dude, man, we were just sitting here talking about the last time we saw each other. It was 15 years ago. And you mentioned basically an historical landmark recording studio in Franklin, Tennessee, the Bennett House.
Yep. I'm not even sure if it's still there or if somebody bought it. We're done.
Yeah, I think it's gone. I think somebody bought it, and so I think the person who bought it isn't even a musician. You know, they're not into.
You're right. I think they made a bed and breakfast out of it or something.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Well, for those of you who don't know, Eric Darken is a percussionist composer, and he's probably played with more people than I could even list in a 2-hour session. So, I mean, dude.
But fuck you. So you.
Oh, well, thank you, man. But I mean, bro, we're talking Taylor Swift, Bon Jovi, Jewel, freaking Margaritaville himself, Mr. Jimmy Buffett, Carrie Underwood, Vince Gill, Amy Grant, Faith Hill, Bob Seger. The list just goes on. First of all, I love looking at your website. Great work. EricDarken.com, DARKEN, for those who want to check it out. So kudos to you. The whole premise of why we exist, the Career Musician, is to talk to people like you. And I already know the answer. But for those listening, you know, if there were a secret sauce, quote unquote, as to how the hell to make a successful career in this business, you know, basically that's what we want to pick your brain about and how you've done it, you know, for all these years and so successfully.
One word: diversity.
I like that.
Diversity, good attitude, good work ethic. Being able to work with people, a wide variety of people, being able to be a chameleon a bit.
Yes.
Being able to walk into a situation and be able to read what's going on immediately. You got to be a little bit of a psychiatrist, psychologist, you know. I hate to use this phrase, but you got to read the room. You got to read the room. You got to read the situation immediately and know what your role is going to be. And if you can learn to do that at a young age and learn how to serve people, how to help people, that's a long answer to a question, but that's sort of what I think it is.
No, I think that's great to start off with because there's so much that we can unpack there. And, you know, going back again, I moved to Nashville in 1997, and I didn't start working in the session scene until probably about 98, 99, probably 99, let's say. And as soon as I started working, everybody just said, oh, yeah, if you know, anything percussion, you call Eric Darken. And I didn't know you. And I don't remember when we first met, but I just remember I heard your name on almost every friggin' session I did. It was like, oh, yeah, Darken did that. Yeah, I'm like, wow, this guy's all over.
I'll be honest with you. My goal has always been to, like I said, diversity and to be able to bring as much to the party as I can, to bring as much to the table as I can. Yeah. Good stuff. You know, I just don't want to bring, I want to be able to bring good ideas, good music, you know, that's my goal, you know. Right. Wherever I come in, whether I'm, like you said, whether I'm working for Bob Seger or George Strait, or I just finished doing some stuff for Megadeth. You know, it's like being able to bring what needs to be brought to the table. That's kind of my goal.
How cool is that, man? Did Dan Huff call you for the Megadeth stuff?
You know what? No, Dave actually did. We just finished it
Dave
a
Mustaine.
month ago. Yeah,
Wow.
we actually for the last few months we had numerous Zoom calls, and I'd sit there, and Dave and his producer we'd sit on Zoom calls and talk about ideas, and they sent me the tracks, and I would send them back ideas, and then we hashed them out. So,
How cool is that, man? I would have never thought percussion would be on a Megadeth album.
this is the third or fourth record I've done. Very, very cinematic,
Okay.
very much orchestral. My role is very orchestral.
Yeah.
It's not a typical shaker tambourine, although there are some hand drums. There's some spots where I was able to sneak in some hand drums on some things that,
Wow.
I think he liked the notion of me throwing him a bunch of ideas, and then he could weed through them, and then, and then we kind of went back and forth.
That's freaking cool, bro.
Yeah, it's great. The first time he popped up on Zoom, I'm like, oh my gosh. And he was great. He's got great ideas. He knows what he wants. He knows what he's hearing.
Right, right.
So it's, not his first rodeo.
That's pretty cool. All right. So let's rewind now, because I started kind of backwards, but I like doing that sometimes just to mix it up. Because again, this podcast exists to inform those who want to get into the position that you are, those who want to make a sustainable career in music. So first of all, what inspired you? When did the music bug bite you? How did you discover, oh shit, I want to be a percussionist? How did that happen?
Well, I started on drum. First of all, it started with my grandfather, who was a musician out of Chicago. And there was nothing drumming about him. He played trumpet, saxophone, French horn. He was a band leader, dance band leader in Chicago. And I think I started beating on drums and such when I was about 8 or 10. I got a snare drum, and I really started out as a drummer. I was like a drum guy, drum set. So, and was way into, jazz. I listened to rock. I was a big Rush fan. I listened to Emerson, Lake and Palmer. I was all over the map. I listened to, you name it, Weather Report, Pat Metheny. And it wasn't until late high school, college that I started to dabble in percussion. So I was really a set player. And then towards the end of high school, I started playing in concert bands and orchestras in high school, and started to become more and more interested in percussion. And then in college, I started playing mallets and timpani, and it just sort of graduated into, I became more and more interested. I loved all the tones and the sounds of percussion. And by the end of college, I had a gig. I ended up getting a gig. I went to a university in Oklahoma called Oral Roberts University, which is the evangelist Oral Roberts. And I went out there, again, mainly studying drum set with some percussion. And then I ended up getting the gig as the percussionist on the show. So for almost 3 years, I played 5 days a week, live TV, as the percussionist. It was sort of like a Tonight Show band with percussion. And so
that's a great, but sorry to interject, but that's a great way to cut your teeth for live TV. That's so important. Yeah.
And we were 5 days a week, 7 o'clock rehearsal, 7 a.m. rehearsals.
Yeah.
We'd read the chart twice and then play it live. And so you learn real quick to get your crap together, and, I was playing vibes and timpani and congas. I was all over the map, but I had to dive into it. It was one of those things and I really loved it.
But let's talk about that for a minute. Like most musicians, the idea of being on set at 7 a.m.
Oh, geez.
I did a TV show for a while as well, and I actually loved it because I'm a morning person. But that means you got to get up at 5.
Yep.
And, you have to be ready. You can't just kind of roll in, all disheveled.
So I tell people, so by 18, 19, I was 20 years old, 19 or 20, I was playing live TV every day, national TV. And you had to have it together. I mean, if you made a mistake, by golly, it was there for the whole world to hear. So my discipline and my focus and learning to read quickly, and, if there was music beforehand that I could get, I learned how to be prepared. You know, if I would always be talking to the music director, like, hey, there's some charts I need to be aware of. I mean, I wanted to be prepared, wanted to be ahead of the game. I didn't want to be the guy, oh, geez, I screwed that up. So many times I would do my homework before even the next day coming in. Like if there was a chart that I needed to kind of woodshed, I did it, you know. And so I was doing the TV show in the morning, and then I was playing maybe jazz band, and then I was also gigging around town in Tulsa. I was playing in local symphonies. I mean, it's a miracle I even graduated, because I really was playing more than I was studying.
Wow.
So I was playing all the time. I was reading all the time, and playing a diversity of music. I mean, I'd be doing this sort of pops orchestra thing on TV, and then at night I'd be playing in the actual Tulsa Philharmonic. You know, so I was all over the map. You know, and then during the day I'd be playing in jazz bands in college. So I was playing. You know, it's like, geez, you know. And what happened is my drum set chops ended up I spent more and more time studying percussion, you know, congas and mallets, and that's just sort of where my head started to move. So that was my collegiate years, and then I moved to Nashville right after that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, look, I first of all, I love the fact that you focused on that, like you said, diversity, that versatility. I'm the same way. I love everything. There's not one style of music that I don't enjoy,
Right.
you know, especially playing. And it's always a challenge if you haven't done it before, which makes it even all the more fun, right?
Oh gosh. Yeah. I mean, I truly believe this road that I am on now is where I was supposed to where I was supposed to be. I truly believe that opportunity to play on TV was a godsend. And it was just, I mean, boom, there it was. And actually the drummer on the show moved to Nashville after me, and he's done great. He's out now, actually, the drummer for Alabama, you know, and he's done a bunch of sessions and session work. So,
Who's
yeah,
that?
I mean, huh?
What's his name?
Tommy Harden.
Okay. Tommy.
And he's done great, but he was the drummer in this TV band while I was the percussionist. So,
Gotcha.
but I was just constantly studying, wanting to learn. It was great. I mean, when you think about the opportunity to play a gig and to grow and to learn, I mean, man,
Right.
it was unbelievable. And I do love, part of my nature is I love learning. You know, I'm in my mid 50s, and I'm still wanting to learn and grow and develop new ideas, you know.
That's right. That's
So
right. Yeah. Now, what prompted you? You know, because again, most drummers don't go in the traditional sense of, you know, hey, I'm going to learn how to read. I'm going to learn all these different mallet instruments. I'm going to learn how to read orchestral charts. You know, what prompted you in that direction?
I graduated. I was reading a lot of music in high school. You know, I was playing in concert bands, so I had started reading music probably when I was in junior high. So that concept of music in front of me started in junior high.
Good.
And then by the time I got through high school, I was reading quite a bit. And then when I went to a small school in North Carolina called Brevard College, and studied with an amazing mallet player. He was Mario Gaetano. I think he's retired. But he was this mallet wizard, and boy, he would bust my chops about practicing, and so that was my mallet and my symphonic side. So he got me into it. So I was reading, you know, getting around charts, getting around orchestral stuff at a fairly young age. So by the time I got to Oral Roberts, you know, you're always learning, but it wasn't freaking me out.
That's very smart. So somebody who wants to be as much of a diversified, you know, drummer, percussionist as you are, what would you tell them? Let's say they have a foundation in something, but they really need to broaden and just learn all the different instruments and all the different techniques. You know, where do they start? How did you really get started and and learn, because bro, and then next thing I want to talk about, sorry, two-parter. The first, that part, and then the second part is I want to talk about all your gear that you've amassed over the years.
Well, so a lot of what I learned I learned on my own, just like I was constantly listening to music, which I still do. I mean, I still spend a lot of time listening to music. I'm like, my big thing is I'm always listening to whatever is new music out there. Anything new, good, bad, and different. I'm always like, when I go for walks or whatever, that's sort of I'm always listening. So I was constantly listening to music, listening to hand percussion guys, huge fan of a lot of the guys from LA that are, Lenny Castro, Luis Conte, Paulino, all those guys. I was studying them and studying how they approach their playing and their records. And so, and one of the things I should say is I started recording, believe it or not, the whole concept of recording started in high school. We started making jazz band records in high school. So that thing of hearing yourself back, that really intrigued me. So I really started recording in high school, and then throughout college I was recording. So, but to your question, I was always wanting to learn the hand percussion thing. And then I visited LA a few times, took a few lessons with Luis Conte.
Oh, neat.
We hung out a little bit. I took a few lessons with him. I was able to go to a couple of scoring stages and watch the percussion section do their thing, which was, as you know, it's phenomenal. Michael Fisher invited me to go hang out with him and watch him. So I was incredibly inspired at 21, 22 years old. I'm sitting in this orchestral section going, this is what I want to do. I love this. I love the energy. I love the diversity. I mean, every cue is different. So that's really how I loved every day is different. So part of it is being open-minded, being teachable. I use the phrase, be a sponge, soak it all in, listen to a variety of music and soak it all in.
Right. Absolutely. So when you got started playing all these different things, something that people always ask me as well is, how do you collect all the instruments? So, and I always say, hey, look, it didn't happen overnight, right? It takes time. You start, maybe you purchase a couple things here and there over time, and then you start working with different companies and you endorse them. So I'm guessing the same for you, right?
Absolutely. I started, I moved to, so I visited LA a few times, was hanging out there a little bit, just learning from folks, watching folks. And part of it too is being honest with yourself about going, I really like that, or I don't like that. I never saw myself really being in a symphony orchestra. I was like, I don't see myself doing orchestra work every day, like going to symphony hall. That was just nothing that intrigued me. Although I love orchestral music and I play it, I play timpani and all that. But the idea of, do I want to be in a symphony was like, no. Mm-hmm. So I do think it's important to be honest with yourself about what you like and don't like.
Yeah.
A lot of people are like, I could never see myself touring. Okay, well, that's good to be honest. Or people that are touring all the time are like, I really don't want to do the session thing. There's people that love the road that are great at the road. And being honest with yourself about that, I think, is a real important thing to learn, especially at a young age.
Well, you just hit on something really sensitive, and I talk about it often, especially because I did an 8-year stint in Nashville. And then I've been out here for 16 years in LA. I'm originally from New York, and I've spent time in South Florida. So I've been all over the place, but especially in Nashville, and I don't know if it's still like that, there was a stigma between the road musicians and the studio musicians.
Yep.
And it's like, if you do too much road work, you get labeled as a road dog, and then people never call you for sessions. And then conversely, there was the cats that were the studio cats. And I actually wrote a song about it years ago. I call it Cat Dog, because you were either a studio cat or a road dog, like,
yeah.
And it's this crazy thing. First of all, does that still exist in Nashville, or has that have people become more open-minded?
I think they've become more open-minded, partly because the industry has changed some.
Yeah.
Uh, there are more artists that are going out that are taking quote unquote studio guys out on the road with them,
Right.
So, like in our band, like in Jimmy's band, there's two or three of us that are session guys that are in the band. Mac McAnally is, as you know, is an incredible studio musician. He's on the road. Myself, Keith Urban has a studio band. So a lot of it depends on um, each artist, but I know a lot of guys that are on the road that the minute they get off the road, they're in the studio. So I
Right.
think that stigma has, to answer your question, that stigma has sort of worked its way out.
Right. Okay, good. Because when I came out here to LA, I found myself in a similar predicament. I could either just say no to all the touring and stay home and wait until I got busy enough in the studio. But I decided to take some road work, and which turned out to be a really good thing. That I ended up being the music director for Babyface for a decade. So
That's
so
great.
that's a good thing. Yeah, and same with you. What I really admire about you is that you've been able to do both. So now let's shift gears. This is the perfect segue. Let's talk about your residency with Jimmy Buffett. First of all, how many years have you been with him?
This will be over 10 years now.
Okay. So
And that
again,
was the first road I would do. Um, I jumped into the studio scene pretty quickly in Nashville. I say quickly, it was one of those things where word of mouth. So many people would just, hey, have you, which I liked. I like the idea of people. I can't tell you how many times over the years people go, "Oh, I'm working with so and so," and they said the call, or the engineer would be like, "Oh, I gave your name to so and so," which is a nice organic way to sort of
yes.
make things happen. Um, but I spent a good 20. I've been in Nashville over 30 years, and I spent a good 20 of those just doing studio work. That's kind of what
Beautiful.
and doing some composing, on the side. And then what happened was, and I worked with Mac McAnally, who's amazing guitar player, and he was with Jimmy, and I knew that. He called me one day and said, "Hey, Ralph McDonald, who at the time was the percussionist, was having some health issues, and so they said, 'Hey, can you come out and sub for Ralph?'" And little did I know that he was in pretty serious health
Mm.
situation. So I went out thinking it was going to be a week. I was like, "Yeah, I'll sub and I'll learn the show." And I thought it was going to be a week or 10 days. And every month they were like, "Well, can you come out for June or July and August?" And by the end of the year, he had passed away. And they said, "Hey, we'd love for you to stay." So um, that was a very sort of a natural way to just, it
Yeah.
just happened.
Yeah.
Um, but what's interesting is I had worked on two or three records of Jimmy over the year. I'd worked on 5 o'clock somewhere with Alan Jackson. Kid you not, I got a call to go work on Alan's record, and they said, "Oh yeah, it's a duet with Jimmy Buff." And I went, "Oh, that's fine."
Yeah.
Thought nothing of it. Well, it was 5 o'clock somewhere, which was a huge hit for Alan and Jimmy, and so I had played on some records of Jimmy over the years. Um,
That's so awesome, man. And
so
that is a really organic way for that to happen. I agree with you. Look, I'm not gonna beat around the bush here. The objective for musicians, for professional musicians like ourselves, career musicians, is to get as much work as we can,
yeah,
right? To keep the
sure. Yeah, you want to stay? Sure. Oh yeah.
to keep the ship afloat. And something that has always been coming up is, networking. How do you network? How do you get your name out there? Now, obviously today it's a little different with social media. But I remember when I moved to Nashville, it's exactly what you said. I would get a call, maybe it was from a friend or somehow I knew this person. They would call me, I would show up, I would play, I would do the session, and they were impressed. So they would either call me again or they would pass my name along to a friend, right?
Yep.
That is, in essence, the most organic way it could happen. Sometimes, what do you say to the young aspiring musician when it doesn't happen so easily? When it's a little more.
I think you've got to find a balance. I think you have to find. You were when I think of career musician, let's take musician out of it and say career contractor, career plumber, career chef, career whatever you are.
Smart.
How does that person, if you're a career landscaper and you love landscaping and you're good at it, how do you get the word out? If you move to Nashville and go, I love landscaping, I've got something to share with this community. How do you get the word out?
Yeah.
You know, and so there's a little bit of, hey, the networking, I want to meet people. You go talk to people, go sit in with people. I can't tell you how many times I would go sit in with bands for free, play at churches for free, whatever it took to I want to get the word out that, hey, I'm in town, this is what I do.
That's
uh,
right.
and so we talk about career musician, and it is a hard industry to get into and to sustain, but so are other things, landscaping, plumbing. If you're a chef and you own a restaurant, how do you stay up on that bar? How do you keep people coming back to your restaurant year after year? And it's the same thing. Why do I keep, this is a sort of a funny thing. I've been using the same plumber for 25 years. Why? Because he's great.
Yeah.
He's a great guy. I like him. I trust him. He shows up. He does his job and he does it great.
Right.
And it's the same thing with us. It's like, stay on your game, show up on time, have a great attitude. That's what makes it. Car guy, I use the same car mechanic, plumber. I got about 5 guys and gals that I use for 20 plus years because of that reason. And so the same thing with us. It's like, what makes people call us back?
That's right.
Keep bringing good things to the table. Keep bringing new ideas to the table. And that's
Man, I couldn't agree more. I have the same accountant, right? The same attorney, the same banker. Like my dad told me years ago, and this does sound a little old fashioned, but what Eric is saying here, everybody, if you're listening, this it's so important because it goes beyond getting the task done. Right now, everything is so automated, and we have all of this technology, and that's great for some things. But there's other things where you want that human connection and that relationship. So when I walk into my local bank branch, the manager that I want to go see, she knows my name and I know her name. Yes. And if there's an issue, say, hey, I'm so sorry. It looks like I have a bounce check here, but that shouldn't be because the funds are there to cover it. Can you help me out with this? She's so happy to help because we know each other, right? So you do need that human connection. So thank you for bringing that to light. I think that's very important.
And I learned that actually, I have to be honest with you. My parents owned a sporting goods store on the East Coast. And so I learned a lot about people relationships and and serving the customer.
Right.
And that's really what we're doing. We're in a service industry. It's like, what can I do to help you? That's my attitude. It's like, how can I serve the music? How can I help you or help this project? Whether I'm working with you or Dave Mustaine or Bob Seger or Jimmy Buffett. When we started rehearsals on this last tour, it's like, what I can't, even though I'm in the band, I've been in the band for a while, I still am going, what can I do to better serve this environment? How do I continually be a good bandmate and be help Jimmy be a better performer?
That's
I'm
such a
aware of that.
That's such a good mindset to have, man.
Well, I think there are, and you know this too. We both know some amazing players that are not necessarily fun to be around or enjoyable to be around. And most of the people that I know that are pretty successful in our industry are great people to hang out with. Not only are they great musicians, but you want to go hang with them and you want them around. You want that energy around. Very rarely there are exceptions, but for the most part, everybody has a good time. Everybody has the same goal.
That's right. That's right. I love that. I love that. Hey, I meant to ask you, when you were starting out and you were sitting in with everybody and, going around town just trying to get the word out, did you ever have business cards?
At that time I did, sure.
Yeah.
I'm in that era of, yes, I had business cards no, I did not have Nashville business cards.
Okay.
Never did Nashville. I did Tulsa.
I was always that guy on the gig who would literally hand out my card. I always had business cards,
Yeah. You know this as well as I do. I can't tell you how many times I would play $30, $40 gigs, play 4 hours for $40, drag my crap through streets and parking tickets and you name it. I was in the trenches,
Right.
But I was always playing with different people, meeting different people, learning how to adapt to different situations.
I love it. I love it.
But
Okay.
I learned that with my parents. My parents were the ones that taught me about serving customers and going the extra mile. When it was 5:30 and we were ready to go home and there was a customer there, by golly, we sat with them and we hung out with them. And the same thing with us. I mean, how many times have we
Mm,
gone over 15 or 20 minutes just because we should go the extra mile?
that's right.
Not, hey, it's 5 o'clock, I'm out of here.
That's
Go
right.
the extra mile. Go. So what? For
Yeah.
me,
Or when the session wraps and they're like, hey, would you mind sticking around in case we need a couple extra overdubs? Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
Right. Yeah. These are the little details. Okay. So something else I want to talk about, like I mentioned, gear. And equipment there's so many little sub compartments within the overall, concept of equipment for us as working musicians, right? Especially for somebody like a percussionist. Now, look, guitar players, we have lots of different guitars, and I'll admit, when it comes to pedals, we are the biggest. They're like toys. I can't get enough.
You guys, and I'm looking at your old studio. I know what you got. I know it.
Yeah, and that's the acoustic corner, and then I have an electric wall here.
And then you got a pedal corner. You got a pedal. Yeah. I know you people.
So yeah, I love that. Okay, but hold on. In all fairness, somebody like yourself, a percussionist who plays all the genres, all right, you have, come on, bro, you have a lot of gear. So I get asked about this as well. Back when we were doing sessions, especially in the heyday, late 90s, even all the way through 2000, you said over 20 years, we always have Cartage, right?
Right.
Cartage is becoming less and less now as budgets shrank. Although now Cartage is coming back a little bit for me. I know I can say to my people, I'm sure probably the same for you. You could say to the team you're working with, hey, if you really want all these different sounds, I'm going to need to hire my Cartage company, right?
Yeah. Sure.
So do you want to talk about that a little bit for the musicians who aren't familiar?
Yeah, I've got, people want my full rig. I mean, I'm not kidding. It's not a full semi truck, but I've got, two of those Cartage trucks. So they'll take both trucks out. If I'm doing a full load of, timpani and mallets plus all the hand drums, it's not uncommon for me to take 2 truck loads of stuff.
Wow.
Whole big, full Monte, like a scoring day or something like that. A lot of times I can get it done in one session, in one truck.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I've got this past couple of weeks, I've been doing, it's all over the map. I'm doing a scoring thing tomorrow for a film. And I will be bringing out, they will tell me what they want gear wise. I don't bring anything that they don't need.
Right.
But I've got a pretty good idea of what to bring, and I've got a warehouse full of stuff and it's all cased up, and I bring, big drums, like I'm bringing a bunch of bass drums and snare drums and ethnic drums. That's what I'm bringing tomorrow. The other day it was a kind of a Western swing country record. Well, that's completely a different setup. So I'll bring, instruments that I think are needed for that. Right. But I also have my own studio, as do you. That's got a pile of stuff in there as well. So right. I can bring stuff from there.
Right. So do you buy, which Cartage company do you work with in Nashville?
I work with Drum Paradise.
Drum Paradise, right. So they're a big company out in Nashville.
They were in LA. I don't know if they're in LA anymore, but they were in LA. They moved to Nashville, and they do all the drum cartages. They do rentals. They do a lot of repairs, and they're great. I mean, they're wonderful.
And you have a good relationship, obviously, with the team over there. And is it a process where you send an email and say, hey, I need these pieces of gear pulled for this session? Is that how you?
Every case that I have is numbered. Mm-hmm. So I literally go, and over the years, I just have a memory of what each case has in it. So I'll say, hey, I need these 5 trunks and these, other instruments, like bring these 2 bass drums, bring these gongs, and bring these 5 other cases, and they know. And if they have any questions, then they call me. But
it's pretty cool to say that, because my Cartage, some amps and amp heads,
Right.
That's as big and heavy as it gets. But for you, when you say gongs, and timpanis, I mean, you're talking about some serious big equipment. Do you have taiko drums as well?
I do have a couple of I've got a version of taikos. Yeah. That's a whole nother animal too. I mean, you get into all that. Yeah, it's insane, you know.
That's
Um,
so cool, right?
it's insane. And I actually am trying to weed out some things. I'm
Right.
not retiring. I'm not doing any of that. But there are times I look around my room and go, "You don't need this much stuff."
Guilty as charged. I'm the
Yeah,
same here. Yeah, yeah. What is it? Gear acquisition syndrome, right? Gas.
right. Well, because I've got a touring rig that stays with the tour, and then
Mhm.
and the other thing too, I play for Jimmy Buffett throughout the year, but then Jimmy's music director Mac McAnally, he and I go do about 30 shows a year. He and I just do,
Wow.
and I play this little hybrid kit. So I do get the
Oh,
chance to play some drum set. I got a suitcase. It's really eclectic. So I get a chance to do that for Mac. So I do Jimmy shows, it's really funny because we'll go play 20,000, seat amphitheaters. And
mhm.
then the next day we're playing a city winery for
Yeah,
400, And so it's like, wow,
yeah.
and
But
um,
that's fun. That's the fun of what we do,
oh, it's
Yeah,
great.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
great. And
Yeah.
again, that chameleon, it's like what I do for Jimmy is completely different than what I do for Mac. So
That's
it's
right.
two different hats,
That's right.
So
Let's talk about the other part of gear that so many people, inquire about, endorsement deals.
yep.
You know, I always talk about the heyday again. I love the heyday. I have such a reverence for the Renaissance period of the session musician.
Yep.
When people like Nathan East and Greg Fillinganes and Vinny Colaiuta, those guys, they used to put those guys on salary. Like the manufacturing companies would pay those guys
Right.
to play their gear. Obviously that's much less common these days, if it even happens at all. I don't know. But I'm sure there's other ways. Like now, there's revenue share programs and
Sure.
affiliate things. Talk about that. Your experience with endorsements, and everybody always wants to know, man, how do I get an endorsement deal?
Right. I have always been one of those people that didn't necessarily chase. I call it chasing endorsements. A lot of people just like to, it's like the more endorsements, the better. I approached it as I want to play gear that I think is going to represent me. I
Yes.
want to play this gear because it's really good. I play my own percussion because I like their drums. I like their percussion. I've always wanted to play Paiste cymbals. And um, I've been with them for over 20 years. I like their cymbals. I love their percussion line of cymbals and gongs. I
Mhm.
like the company. I like, working with Kelly, the owner of the company. Um, there's a mallet company that I used to work with named Mike Balter Mallets. He did all the timpani mallets and all the gong mallets and the bass drum mallets. I know Mike personally, and so most of the company that I've worked with, I've been with for 20 years, and I have a working relationship with them. They know me, I know them, and it was one of those things where they would send me stuff, updated stuff. We got new things out. You need to try it out, and so every piece of gear that I endorse or that I say, hey, I use their gear, I am proud to use it because it sounds great and I use it.
Right, right. See, I'm of the same mindset. I love that.
I mean, I am not. I mean, and there's some amazing companies. There's and you know this as well with what's going on in the internet and Instagram and all that. There's so many new young companies that are coming out.
Mhm.
People
Mhm.
that are just starting up and working out of their garage or their basement. A lot of very cool handmade percussion things.
Yeah.
There's a guy out of Virginia that started making suitcase bass drums, and I called him and I didn't for a second go, hey, what kind of deal can you give me? I knew he wasn't making any, he's making them hand, one by one. He's making these suitcases. I'm just like, man, it looks great. It looks like it sounds great. I heard some audio, and I'm like, I'm just gonna buy one.
Yeah.
I wasn't gonna go to him and go, man, I need to get one for free because I played for this artist. It's like, so when I find things that I think are going to contribute to what I'm doing musically, I'll I'll buy one.
Especially those conversation pieces we all have a few little secret weapons that when we pull out in the session,
Oh,
everybody just gets all a buzz and they're like, whoa, what's that? That's so cool, right?
oh gosh.
Yeah.
And my world is that, you too, you got some ethnic stuff that's like,
Yeah.
is that, oh yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, speaking of which, I'm so glad you brought that up. The other day I commented on your Instagram post, you had a cool drum with popcorn inside it.
Right there. Yeah. That's a prime example. New company. I found him online. I think he's out of New Hampshire.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh God, I gotta have that. And I emailed him, or I messaged him and said, God, I love that. I gotta have it. And I knew it was gonna do what I needed it to do. And I just paid him, sent it to me, and it's freaking great. I got it.
Yes.
I'm gonna post some other stuff like that. I just, I love it. I love finding stuff like that, and it's all over the place.
It sounds so cool, bro. It's this clear drum, and it has unpopped corn kernels in it.
Yep.
I was gonna say, excuse me, don't leave it in the sun, right?
No. But it's one of those things where I heard it and I play it mainly with like a broomstick, and it sounds great. And
that's killer.
Creative Percussion. They're out of New Hampshire, I think.
So cool.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about. You've already divulged a lot. You've enlightened, the community quite a bit already. But when you're going into the session to work with the likes of, Taylor Swift, Bon Jovi, I noticed you played on the new Niall Horan record. Some of these big Carrie Underwood, some of the big AAA artists, right?
Yeah.
How do you conduct yourself in that session that you would recommend to any, again, to the young aspiring generations? My whole point here is to teach the up and coming generation, this is how you do it.
I am by nature, and you would probably know this, or we've been around each other a little bit. I'm a fairly quiet, laid back guy. Mm. So my approach when I walk in is to have all my ears on. I try to listen to what's going on. I don't need to be the center of attention. I don't need to be, when I'm sitting in, just try to be a good listener. I do that with Jimmy's band. Mm-hmm. We just finished tracking some new songs for Kenny Chesney, and it was a full tracking band. It was a who's who of, Chad Cromwell, Kenny Greenberg was playing guitar. We had 3 guitar players, keyboard. It was just awesome. Yeah. And it's like, and Kenny and his producer steer the ship really well. If you'll listen, be a good listener. Listen to what they have to say. Listen to what they want. Listen to what the other guys in the band are saying. Mm. I've learned so much from other players, from other guitar players, bass players, about what I should do. And I don't even ask questions. I just kind of go, okay, if you're going to do that. So I try to be really aware. I tell this is one of my things, be aware. I tell my daughter that, be aware. What do you mean by be aware? Be aware. Be aware of your surroundings. Be aware what the hell's going on in the session. Be aware. Listen to everything. We've got on the Buffett thing, for example, we got a 10-piece band. It's a lot of music going on.
That is.
Be aware. Be aware of who's playing what, when, and why. And by doing that, you'll know what to play or what not to play.
I love that. No, it's a great answer. And by the way, I tell my daughter the same exact thing. She just turned 14. She started high school. And yeah, it's like, that's it. We're always telling her, be aware of all of your surroundings. That coupled with, you don't need to be the center of attention. And that's the key. And I agree with you. That's how I've sustained and our ability to be a chameleon, because there is going to be a time when the producer or the composer or whomever you're working with, or maybe you're the artist in that sense, and maybe you're composing or producing, there's going to be a time where you're in the hot seat and the spotlight's on you, but it's not going to be all the time.
No. Well, that's the thing too. And you're right. Now, I'm talking about a tracking date. There were 7 guys. And so it's easy to kind of fall back and go, okay, I'll just do my thing. See ya. I'll go into my corner and play my conga part. Yep. But now one-on-one, like a lot of times when I go in one-on-one with a Seger or like Dave Mustaine, or
Yeah.
I was overdubbing a little while ago on a George Strait record, is being able to read the room immediately.
Yes.
Being able to go, when they say, I want shaker and tambourine and I want congas on the last chorus. And you need to know that's all they want. They don't want your opinion on anything else. You got to be able to know they're not interested in when to be a technician and when to play the part, or to go, some people will go, I want these three things and whatever you think.
That's
So
right.
you got to be able to read the room pretty quick, and you got to be able to be flexible and to be quiet
Yeah.
and to be aware, like I
Yeah.
said.
That's right. Yeah. If they want chimes, don't pull out the popcorn drum.
No. And there's,
Yeah.
you mentioned working on Niall's record. That was with Jakir King. And believe it or not, Jakir sent me the tracks to where I did a lot of pre-programming on that. And so we were never in the room, but I get instructions from him. He will tell me very specifically of what he wants.
That's right.
Tones, parts. And I know, for example, especially with Jakir, he likes a lot of what I do to be dark, sort of mysterious, grungy. He doesn't like things to be real shimmery. And so I know that about him. So I don't give him anything that's real too happy sounding or too, high end shimmery.
Absolutely. Makes sense. Love it. Love it. Okay. And then finally, before we start to wrap up, I do want to ask you this. Once again, for those people who have toured and have touring careers or who want to do that, and look, I know the answer, but I like to talk about it. I like to bring it out into, open forum here. Well, I know my answer, and it's probably similar. How do you keep a gig so long? And that's something, that I was asked. I was with the Babyface camp for 12 years total, and you've been with Buffett for 10 years. Something in the business, something about longevity is not there, and loyalty, man. Boy, those are two words that aren't very common. So for people to keep a gig long term like that, it's impressive.
Well, thank you. I mean, I'm the new guy in the band, believe it or not. I mean, the band's been together for the drummer, bass player, and guitar player have been with them, I think, 25, 30 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So, again, it comes back to your talent. They like you as a player. They like your playing ability, but they also enjoy being around you and being in a van together, being able to, the hang factor.
Yeah.
Being a good personality, being easy to work with. Some of my best times in the studio, what makes the camaraderie work is a great pool of talent with a great hang of personalities. And we all get along. And the truth of the matter is, the Buffett gig is a true family. Everybody genuinely cares about everybody. And again, being quiet, being observant. I don't need to be the focal, we got one band leader, he's on the marquee and he's a great band leader. Jimmy's great to work for. He's got great ideas. But I'm constantly aware and listening to what he likes, what he wants.
I love it. Now, when you come into a situation like that, typically budgets are already worked out. And, I know from experience, a lot of times, especially from an established artist, they'll say, hey, this is what we have budgeted for your chair. This is what we can pay you. And you have the right to say yes or no. In those instances where it's not so cut and dry, I'm sure you've had to deal with this before and throughout your career, negotiating. How do you handle that?
You have to, well, it depends who the artist is. I have not had to get into too hardcore. Most of the time, I'm able to find a happy medium between, asking maybe too much versus not lowballing yourself. That you're like, gee, do I want to, like people call me all the time to work on a song or a record, and it's the same thing though, guys. So what do you charge? It's like, well, I've got to find somewhere that I don't want to give away my time.
Right.
But I also, and my time's valuable. It's like I look at it sometimes, and this is again after I've been doing this for so long, I go, I'm okay to walk away from this. Being able to go, my time is worthwhile. I could be writing or doing something else. So I don't know. That's probably not the right answer necessarily.
No, that's a great answer, because I always tell people that as well. Don't just give away your services, because even if it's a quick, it's only going to take you 20 minutes. Nah, that's not what you're paying me for. You're paying me for my expertise in that field, right?
Right. I mean, and I know people would say this to you. They'll go, Nomad, we need you to do your thing. How many times have you heard that? Do your thing. Right?
Yeah.
Do your thing. Well, your thing has been developed for how many years?
That's right.
There's a reason.
That's
how
right.
many times do people come to me, hey, I'm sending you some tracks, do your thing.
Yeah.
Well, I've spent 30, 40 years developing that thing that I know exactly. For the most part, I got a pretty good idea of how this should go. When somebody says, hey, it needs to be radio, it needs to be this and that, do your thing. Well, when you go to a chef, why does it, when I go to a good restaurant, hey, do your thing. Think about it.
That's right.
It's part of it. It's like, there's a reason why that entree is $47, because that guy's doing his thing. He spent 35 years developing that thing.
Learning how to do it.
It tastes great, so I'm willing to pay for it.
That's right. That's right.
You have to be honest with yourself and go, and I'm starting more and more to walk away from a few things, just to go, you know what, this is not good for me. This is not good for my soul. This is not good. This is not going to benefit me.
Yeah.
And I'm okay to walk, even though they're paying me some sort of amount of money. It's okay. I can walk away from it.
That's right.
So
that's right. And that's a good place to be. And look, it's a balance, because you can't necessarily start off your career like that.
No,
but you can't. Yeah, right. But you can't be in a hurry to get there either. It's a delicate balance. It's an organic evolution, wouldn't you say?
It is. And I also, I hate to say it this way, because there is a little bit of a psychology to it. You have to sort of read a situation. There's been times where I'll be like, you know what? I'll get a good vibe from somebody on the phone that I've never met and go, you know what? I think I should help you with this, or I want to be involved in this.
Yeah.
Maybe musically it's incredible and monetarily it's not. Well, then maybe it's going to turn into something. So you find that thing of going, the bread's not there, but the music's incredible. So I'm going to do this because I want to do it.
I love that. I love that. And I love that. Hey, I'm bringing back the old vernacular of musicians. I love how you said the bread, because we always say, what's the bread? Is the bread good? Yeah. And that means the money. I love it.
The bread is, and sometimes I just go, there's times where it all works, where the money's great, the music's great, the hang's great, but not everything that comes through my door, that comes across my email is like, wow.
That's right.
I'm not,
right. The hang, it's about the hang and the bread, and how to weigh these things out. It's so important. So important.
You asked me, and I think this is truly, because I was thinking about this interview for a few weeks now, and just,
cool, man.
I think one of the things that is so important is be teachable.
Yes. Okay. So this is perfect. I was going to ask you your words of wisdom. So be teachable.
I think being teachable, always wanting to learn and grow. I mean, you and I can share, we can talk about all the musicians. I think it was quoted by Vince Gill, and I don't want to take it out of context, but he said, I love having guys in my band that are better than me. There's not a day that I don't wake up that I'm learning something and I want to grow and be better. Whoever I'm listening to, whatever that drummer, percussionist, it could be somebody in LA, it could be you can press any sort of button and find some amazing musician around the world that will school you before you've even had your first cup of coffee. You're already going, oh my God, what am I doing? There's some 18-year-old guy or gal in some foreign country that just kicked my rear end on a part. I'm like, oh my gosh, so be teachable, be open-minded, be a good listener,
Love it, man.
That's sort of my motto at my age. Is like, and anybody that knows me, I will tell you the story. Doesn't have to make the air or not, but I was in Boston and got to hang out with Neil Grover from Grover Percussion.
Oh, wow.
Neil is the percussionist for the Boston Pops. And I use a lot of, I pay for my instruments with Neil. I love the instruments. I use them. I pay for them. And I met him one day and I said, man, I love your instruments. They're great. And I don't want anything for free. I just want you to know, I just love what you do. And we struck up a really cool friendship. And he goes, well, when you're in Boston, let's hang out. I said, great. I want to come take a lesson. So I went to Symphony Hall on a day off.
Yeah.
Sat in the pit of Boston Pops and took a lesson on triangle and tambourine.
Okay, hold the phone, because see, a lot of people might not understand the depth there, but that's important. Bro, you just blew his mind, because first of all, you showed immense humility.
Oh yeah.
By saying,
the guys in my band, I came back and we had a gig the next day, and the guys were like, hey, what you doing your day off? I said, oh, I went and took a lesson with the percussionist from the Boston Pops. Yeah. And a couple of them were like, what did you study? I went, triangle, tambourine. And they went, what? I went, oh yeah. Yeah, I got schooled. Yeah. And he was great. Neil was great. And Neil knew where I was coming from musically and what I wanted to do. I'm like, tell me teach me something. And man, we had the best time. Technique, where to place the beat, or all this stuff. You know, I played some things for him. I played Piatti. You know, I just wanted to hear, I wanted a different perspective. You know, tell me what I'm doing wrong. Tell me what I'm doing right. And now that comes back to being teachable. You and I have talked. I have sent you music. Yes. And there's been times you're like, hey, that's really cool. Or, hey, that sound is sort of dated and you can do better. Now, I could have taken that and gone, well, the heck with you. I could have gotten real defensive, or I go, hey, okay, right. I'm gonna dig in. That's being teachable and wanting to grow and stay in the game. I think if you want to stay in the game in this industry, you've got to be teachable and you've got to want to grow.
Man.
I mean, to me.
So no, that's it.
And I'll guarantee you and I could have the same question. You had Russ Kunkel on. Russ would say it. Yep. You know, Steve Luca. You name the who's who of who's who will tell you that. Yep. That they are constantly growing. They are constantly learning.
That's right. And by the way, Russ was a sweetheart, man. On the show. Yeah.
He's great. He's one of my favorites. So that's my whole. So I'm glad I got that story in about the Boston Pops, because that was great. You know, it's like triangle and tambourine. Oh yeah. And I still, to this day, I still use the little technique, the little nuances. There was, nothing, but it was great. And
well, I'm so glad you brought that up, because it's the subtleties. Another example is on an acoustic guitar track. You know, a lot of people now, especially they're banging the instruments, they're treating the acoustic guitar like a percussion instrument, and that's cool. I love that. But when you're called in to play acoustic guitar on a track for a Kenny Chesney or somebody like that, man, your strumming arm better be like a freaking metronome. And it better be so consistent. And guess what? You have to know the difference between going jang, 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 or just jang, 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 jang. Like those little subtleties can make or break the track. Yeah. So I understand why you study, because I'm the same way. I nerd out about that stuff. And that's why we're who we are in our positions, right?
Well, another line that goes with what you just said is serving the music.
Serving, amen to that.
Now that line has been used many times, but Mac McAnally, who's my dear friend, and we play together, we hang together, he always, and I've picked it up more and more, serve the music. Serve the music, serve the gig. What's my role with Jimmy Buffett? My role is to sit back. I actually play more and am more involved in Mac's gig than I am Jimmy's. I have found myself more and more editing out what I don't need to play.
Right.
I'm serving the music. I am serving Jimmy, and I'm serving 15, 18,000 people. It's like, what do I do to make the music better? Whether it's with Jimmy, whether it's with you, whether it's with tomorrow when I go play a session with somebody else. How do I serve the music? How do I become a servant and help this music?
That's it, man. That's it.
Be teachable. be a servant. And a servant's not like, I'm not like bowing down, but it's like being aware of what can I do to contribute to this project. Think of yourself, and again, I go back to this whole food thing because I love food, but it's the same thing. It's like, what makes a great chef? He knows what to add, what not to add.
Right.
He's serving the customer. He sees this whole pantry of spices, and yet he'll only use 3 out of the 30.
Right.
And you go, those 3 are the ones that make it.
I know, I agree with that. I think we can all relate. Sometimes when we empty out the spice cabinet onto our dish, it's awfully like, oh, I used too much.
Same thing with the music. It's like, anyways.
No, I love it, man. I love it.
So that's my little heady, nerdy, how I think through things, how I approach things. And every day is different, as it is with you. I know every day is different with you. You're writing one day, you're doing this, and I love that. And so it allows us, I'm working with different people all the time. I'll go from sessions this week, I'm going to hop on a plane at the end of the week, and then I get to go be in a band, and so I got to deal with those guys, and so.
That's so awesome, man. Beautiful stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, Eric Darken, probably one of the most recorded musicians in the history of freaking session musicians. You've done so much. It's so great to have this firsthand knowledge from you, my friend.
Well, thank you for having me. I love what you're doing. I love the concept of career musician, and you're doing a great service and a great work out there.
Man, thank you. Thank you. We're not done yet. Okay. So, are you ready for some rapid fire?
Yes, I have my notes.
All right, here we go. Instrument you wish you played.
Oh, gosh. Banjo.
Last concert you attended but did not play.
Mumford and Sons.
Oh, I like that. Favorite food?
Anything international. Asian. Thai.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Favorite drink, libation or non-alcoholic?
French Sancerre and a craft beer.
Ah, nice, nice. Favorite city?
Chicago.
3 tour essentials that you cannot leave home without.
Coffee, workout clothes, and computer.
So you bring your own coffee on the road?
Yeah.
Ah, that's a diehard there.
Yeah, no, I'm anybody that knows me on the road, anybody know,
Okay.
Yeah, that's like hardcore. Everybody knows Darken's got to have his coffee in the morning. Oh, they know it.
There you go. I like that.
Yeah.
And true coffee connoisseurs always drink it just black, no cream, no sugar.
Right. I brew my own. I do my own. I have a coffee company out of Texas that sends me coffee. It's bad. It's
I love it. I love it. Your friends would say you are
easygoing.
Song or band that changed your life?
Rush.
Good one. As entertainers in the music business, we entertain thousands, right? That's what we get paid to do. What entertains you?
Oh my gosh. Food.
I like it. Are you a chef? Do you like to cook?
I love to cook, but no, I'm not a chef, but I use, it's like a therapy to me. I love to get in the kitchen. That's my break time. I'll go into the kitchen and mess around. So that is entertaining to me. What entertain? Yeah, food, entertaining. I find it, and on the road, it's. I love snooping around. I love finding wonderful restaurants and the skankiest of dives.
Yeah,
I will walk miles to go find a greasy burger.
Man, if we're ever on the road together, we'll be doing that together because I'm the same way.
It is. And people know me that I will do that. I will walk miles to find something that's skanky but really good.
Same here, and you're getting exercise too, and you get to see a new city. So it's all.
Yes, yeah.
That used to be one of my favorite things about touring. Waking up early in the morning, putting on my, like you said, workout clothes, and just hitting the streets, walking, jogging, whatever, just getting out there, right?
Yep. Get lost in a city. Yeah. In a city, you grab your credit card, grab your phone, great sneakers, and walk. Just walk.
You're done. That's right. All right. Hidden talents.
Cooking, I love landscaping. That's it for now.
Nice. You've collaborated with a lot of the greats of the greats of the greats of the industry. Any collaborations that haven't happened yet that you would like to happen?
When you say collaborations, like who would I like to work with, or just anything?
Yeah.
I
Somebody
would
you'd like
like, yeah, I'm going to tell you, I would love to be in a room and work with Paul Simon.
Mm.
I'd like to work with Robert Plant,
Mm-hmm.
Pat Metheny, Paul McCartney, all for different reasons. I'd love to be in a room, and it's the creative concept. It's the creative from beginning, just being in a room with these people.
That's right.
Years ago, I remember doing a record with Willie Nelson. We were tracking, and it was, and I'll never forget this. I wish I remember the song, but I remember thinking that it's just how magical it was to work with Willie. And I'll never forget playing a song. It was a Chris Christopherson song sung by Willie Nelson.
Mm.
I just sat there and went, okay, you know. So I would love to experience those, the creative process with these people.
Yeah.
Paul Simon, Sting, Paul McCartney, you know, the patience that they have to create.
That's right. That's right. Well, those are some heavyweights. All right. And finally, drum roll, please. I like it. I like it. What would you do if you weren't a career musician?
I would do something in the creative world, chef, landscaping. I love architecture.
Nice.
I love traveling. So something that would be in the creative nature. I do love food, and I've had good friends of mine that always tell me, anytime people ask me about that, they'll go, "Don't you ever get involved in the food industry." but I do love it. I love cooking, and I love the creative side of that.
Right. Yeah. Man, I can attest to the fact that it's difficult. My parents have had restaurants before my father passed last year. He's from Cuba, so they had Cuban restaurants, and he learned all the secret family recipes from his grandmother, which he then taught me. You know, so I love cooking as well. So yeah.
So you get it.
Yeah, but I saw them go through a lot. It was tough with the restaurants.
Oh, it's very. I mean, I know the restaurant thing is insane. I know it's insane. But as far as cooking and creating and trying things,
Yes.
it sort of relates to what I do musically, and I can shut all this down. I can go down there and just, you know,
That's right.
on there. So that's my thing.
I love it. Well, man, I can't wait till we get to hang. So next time you're in LA, you got to let me know.
Oh yeah.
And if I'm in the Ville, I'll do the same.
We will do it. Thank you so much for letting me be a part of this. I really appreciate what you're doing with your show and the concept and helping folks. And hopefully this was good for everybody.
It was a blast. It's going to be amazing.